Thank you, everyone. Got a good crowd here. Not as much as the FMCSA talk, but hopefully the questions will be easier. So we're going to, from DAT, for those of you who don't know, DAT is the largest freight marketplace in North America. So we have about 10,000 brokers on our network who post the loads that they need to get sourced, and we have a lot of carrier subscribers that come in and pick up those loads. And so, we really succeed when carriers succeed. And so we've invested a lot of time into looking at what factors cause carriers to succeed, especially over that first year, especially over that critical 90 days. And that was kind of the inspiration for this talk. We process a lot of new authorities as well. And so we kind of see people come into the market, and then we kind of see how long they last. And we have a lot of data around what factors and what kind of knowledge contribute to that. And so that's what we want to kind of talk about today. As a way of introduction, my name is Greiner. I'm the head of carrier growth at DAT, so my job really is to make sure that carriers succeed, that they have a good relationship with us. And Kerry, why don't you introduce
So I'm Kerry Puff, one of the authority reps for DAT, and we will guide you through the process from start to finish and stay with you throughout the entire process based on your truck type and where you're located.
So, one of the truths of this industry is that the first 90 days really are going to be rough, right? Because it is hard when you first have your brand new authority to really get brokers to work with you, to find those loads. But it also presents a unique opportunity to really start with the foundation of your business and set yourself up for long-term success. And so that's what we're going to be kind of going into today of, okay, well, what can you do during those first 90 days? What can you do to start setting your business up for success? And we really focused on kind of three principles. So how do you build that trust and credibility with brokers? How do you establish that strong foundation for your trucking business? And then how do you position for yourself for long-term growth and success? And so we kind of broke this up into three key focus areas for a 90-day roadmap, right? That foundation and branding, and we'll explain what that means. Operational efficiency, so making sure that you are able to run profitably. And then how do you build that long-term reputation? So the first thing is, we talk about branding, and we say, what is a brand, okay? A lot of research has gone into branding over the years. A brand, first off, is not a logo. A logo represents your brand, but a brand is not a logo. A brand is your culture, it's your vision and values, it's how you communicate with customers, it's their experiences with you, and your reputation. And so your logo represents that, but that's really what your brand is. And so as you're starting off in the first 90 days, you can start thinking about, well, what do I want to be known for, right? What do I want my brand to stand for? There's what does cough syrup have to do with trucking? Well, a lot, right? Why can one brand charge twice as much as the other? And it's because they've invested, a lot into the brand, and it comes with a set of promises and values. And so this is really applicable for new carriers because you don't want to be competing on price. We do find that carriers with a strong brand are able to command more for every load they haul. And it's not as much of a race to the bottom with price because they can command a higher price because of that brand. And a lot of times you see this without even really recognizing it. Listening to Chad Bobbitt speak yesterday, he was talking about how there was one shipper that he always worked with, and he really focused on just, he was always there on time, he was always there, act professionally, and pretty soon that shipper started asking the broker for him specifically, right? And really what that was his brand, right? He had started to stand for something, and that allowed him then to ask for a higher price. So the benefits of a strong brand, really threefold, right? You have heightened levels of brand attachment and returning customers. Again, that means brokers want to keep working with you. You have above average benefits from word of mouth. and you avoid competing solely on price. And that last one is really important in this industry. So it really starts, again, bringing this back to the first 90 days, it starts with how do you set up that brand? And what I would say the first step is really purchasing a domain and setting up a professional website. That's something that's often skipped by new carriers in the industry. Using a professional email domain. We have some data on this, but don't rely on a Gmail or a Yahoo Mail, right? Pay a little bit extra, get an actual email domain to set up your brand, and then kind of design a company logo and branding materials. This used to be very expensive. Now it's very cheap, right? I've seen AI tools that can create 10 different logos for your business. You tell the color, what you want, what your company values are. It'll create 10 logos for you in 5 minutes, right? And you can choose one of them, right? So it's not that hard. It's just these are some of the steps that we need to take. And then getting out there. There's a lot of places where you can list your business, where you can get reviews, getting out there on Google Business, LinkedIn, Facebook. DAT has a carrier profile that we'll speak a little bit about. And then engaging in trucking forums and groups is really important. Start getting your name out there. So the first with a website. These are just a few websites that I was scrolling around and I found. But what we found when we worked and crunched the data was that those carriers that had a website and a custom email were averaging about $50 to $100 more per load than those that didn't. That was a pretty interesting statistic, and they were getting about 11% on average more per load. And so it doesn't have to be much, but I think some best practices are, I really like these 3 because you land on the website and immediately you kind of tell what that company stands for, right? So Rickards is owned by Josh Rickards. He really deals a lot with hauling equipment for like concerts and venues. And you kind of go to his website, and the first picture there is an image of a crowd at a concert, and he kind of talks about what his specialty is. CB Freight is a company I know. I kind of like how the moment you go to their website, right away you're saying, okay, what does their brand stand for? What is their value? Okay, they're a family-owned trucking company. And then it kind of talks about their fleet and how they invest in new equipment and things like that. And then Prime, I just kind of like, I think they have a lot of great imagery on their website. I don't know them personally, but I kind of love the imagery and the logos, and I love the tagline, driven by the best, right? So each of these companies, they really kind of thought to themselves, okay, what do I want to be known for, right? What do I want people telling, what do I want to stand for, and kind of bringing that front and center on their website. So I think that's an important aspect. The next step is DAT carrier profile. So I mentioned that we're a freight marketplace. This is something that we have coming soon, but basically it allows you to have a profile on our platform. You'll be able to link out to your website, add a bio, and earn badges, things like how long you've been in business, or you have ELD tracking, things that kind of build trust and credibility with brokers. And you'll be able to post pictures of your truck and equipment, and also get analytics to see how often brokers are viewing your profile, and then we'll provide you tips for gaining more visibility. So this hasn't launched quite yet, expected to launch sometime this year, but it's just another way where you can kind of get your name out there and start telling people what you stand for. Okay, moving past the branding a little, let's talk about operational efficiency. So the first step is obtaining your authority. And I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about, you're the expert here.
If you haven't already secured your business entity in your state, if you're working with us, we can give you the details on how to get that business registered in your state, how to obtain your EIN number through the IRS, for free, by the way. And then once that is secured and you've got your domain email, which is really, truly important, then we can move forward with the authority process. We just rolled out a great package, but we're going to be talking about that later, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the package is amazing. And but once you have all of that put in place, we'll take the information over the phone, and we do the work for you with the federal government, which means we're going to do all of the paperwork. we are going to ensure that it's correct, because time is money. So we understand that. So we're going to work with you. And then we can help you on your state platforms too. IRP, IFTA, whatever you need.
Yeah. One thing that we kind of recommend is having a dedicated business phone number. That's something that sometimes is overlooked, but you don't want your personal cell phone being published on the FMCSA database, because you're going to get a lot of calls to that phone number. And so, setting up a business phone number, using a trusted third party like DAT, a lot of the authorities we process are actually applications that have been messed up by other companies. So just make sure that whoever you choose, whether it's us or someone else, they're a trusted third party, that they do a lot of these, that they don't lock you into some long-term contract with like penalties and things like that. And then some things to keep in mind: know it qualifies as a legal address. No PO box or anything like that. Certain serious criminal convictions, we get this question a lot. It's not all criminal convictions, but there's a few that you need to be aware of.
Yes.
And then again, using that third party that locks you into a long-term contract is something you do not want. Networking essentials. Okay, so how to build relationships that matter. Let you speak to this a little.
When we already spoke about when you're brand new, that it's difficult for a broker to want to trust you into hauling that freight. When you do get a broker to trust you with that load, you need to make friends and start building that trust with them so that they can put their positive notes on your page so that other people can see it, because that's visibility, and that's what you're looking for, to get visibility, to get more loads with other brokers.
Yeah. We said at the very beginning, if you can make it past the first 30 days, you're probably going to make it. One of the reasons for that is because you're probably not going to get the highest paying loads at first, right? While you're building up this brand. But if you can get past that and start getting reviews of your business, building those relationships, that's how those carriers get past and end up succeeding.
Preparing ahead of time is key. If you prepare for these 6 months that we know is rough, you're going to be in much better shape.
Yeah. The other thing I'd make a plug for is down at the bottom there, access valuable market insights. So at DAT, we have the most market data in the industry. We have about $1 trillion of data every year. And so we can see what lanes are going for, what prices are. And that really becomes your negotiating power. And so, the more you're looking at market insights, the more we have we have podcasts and videos. We give weekly updates on what's happening in the market, what we're seeing. And the more informed you are and the more intelligently you can speak to brokers about hey, I know for a fact that this load is running for this or that it's up this week, the better prepared you are to have those negotiating conversations. So to sharpen your negotiating skills, okay, understand your operating costs, right? This is very important. You need to know exactly your fuel, your maintenance, your insurance costs, and you need to have an established clear minimum rate. I spoke about utilizing market trend tools like DITIQ and know regional demands, right? It can look, there may be a high price for a load heading into Florida, but you need to know that heading out of Florida, it's not going to pay very well. And those are things that you just need to start to educate yourself with. Clearly articulate the value you bring. So, this again is when you're on a call, it's a small pitch, right? It's a small pitch into your brand with that broker and telling them what you stand for. And those things actually do work. Asking open-ended questions to kind of uncover broker needs and tailor your pitch accordingly, and then not accepting the first rate offered without proper consideration. So kind of you can really display confidence, and I think some carriers believe that, if I negotiate, I may lose it, or they may not want to work with me. I actually think it projects a lot of knowledge when you can speak intelligently to this conversation. I think brokers respect that. Protecting yourself from fraud. you warn a lot about this when you're first starting off.
This is just as important for you to vet the brokers that you are working with, just like they're vetting you as a carrier. So there are many ways of doing that. Check their website. Find out that they are who they say they are. You can check the FMCSA's website, licensing and insurance, check SAFER. Make sure that everything is buttoned up because you need to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Be careful of unusually high rates. Utilize the blue check mark in DAT. So we partnered with OTR, who really has, I would say, one of the most extensive kind of databases of brokers' financial stability. And they will put a blue check mark in our app where it'll say, how trustworthy that broker is, right? And we stand behind that. So if there is a blue check mark and you take that load, even if that broker goes out of business, we'll pay you for that load. And so there really is, but that's your key that broker is financially solvent and that you will get paid. Invest in yourself. I would say that, third-party dispatching is popular, and I think that not all third-party dispatchers are bad. I don't think all are good. But I'd say it's one of those things where, I have a son that's buying his first new car, and I'm like, hey, we're going to learn how to change your oil. Right now, whether later on you decide you want to pay someone to do your oil change, that's fine. But at least you're going to know how to do it. And I'm going to teach you how to do it, right? And I would give the same advice, like know how to negotiate, know how to talk with a broker, know the rates and things like that. And if later you decide, hey, I want to work with a dispatcher to just become more efficient, that's great. That's your choice. But at least set yourself up and know how to do those things yourself.
DAT University.
Yeah, so we'll speak to that a little later, but we do have a lot of videos and resources on our website of negotiating tips and tricks and things like that to help you prepare. So kind of optimizing your business operations, we looked over our data, so DAT, Trucker Tools, and OTR, and what we found is that, carriers that really combine those solutions are 82% more likely to be in business after 12 months. I think one of the reasons is, OTR, they have that true non-recourse factoring. So basically, like regardless, again, if there's a blue check mark there, you're going to get paid. And a lot of times what you see is that, especially when you're first starting out, not getting paid on just one load can really ruin you and make you financially insolvent. And so that's really important, especially that first year. And so because of that, and because I mentioned earlier, we're really invested in helping carriers succeed, we kind of developed this new authority co-pilot program. And so it really includes kind of 4 things. So you're going to get 50%. When you use us to get your authority, it's $399. It's the cheapest value in the industry, but you're going to get the most value, about $700 of value. So you're going to get 50% off your first 6 months on the load board. You're going to get a $60 rebate. So on the fuel card, you're going to get discounted true non-recourse invoice factoring with a $100 rebate. And insurance quote from a lot of different providers. We'll set them all up. We'll send you your information you can get, and they'll all compete for your business. So we kind of started this program actually just a few days ago to really make sure that people just coming into the industry are kind of set up for success and that hit that 1-year survivability. And then leveraging technology. So we have a lot of tools that we provide at disposal. So we have things in our app like a profit estimator where you can put in your operating costs and you can see, when a broker posts a load go in one direction, you can kind of measure it to see like, okay, here's how much profit I'll actually make on that load once I take out fuel and my operating costs and things like that. Again, we have that blue check mark. We have a lot of training videos on YouTube, about almost 500 videos. And we have webinars every Thursday at 1 p.m. Where we talk about like rates and what's going on in the market. And then finally, I want to kind of get into that last part of building a reputation, right? So once you kind of have established what your brand is, you have that operational efficiency. It sounds like they're having a really good time over there. Sorry. You're building, and now it's time to add on to that, right? Build that reputation. And so I'll say a few things to this. Kerry told me this. This is not an industry to have an ego in. And that's hard for a lot of you. This is hard for me. But you have to treat every interaction like it's going to find its way online, because a lot of times it will. Do you add anything to that?
Yeah. You want people to be positive about what you're doing, so I want you to do the same and try to limit negativity. That's a very important part to start building trust with the people that you want to do business with. So you want to be humble. And when you're out there and you're completing these loads for these brokers, don't be afraid to ask for a recommendation. Hey, put something on my, my DAT solutions board. You go ahead and get it in writing so that you can have a little bit more visibility.
Yeah. I would say that, one of the things we do at DAT is when we get a really good recommendation or something, we'll take it, we'll put it on the website, right? And we'll have a quote from a customer. And I think those are, especially when you're starting off and trying to build that trust, taking recommendations you get on Twitter saying, hey, can I get that? It was, broker compliments you on a good job. Asking to get that in an email form, and hey, can I put this on the website? Goes a long way. Goes a long way. One thing about Care 401 and Freight Guard, this is a very big thing in the industry. Set up an email alert, because sometimes those can go to spam if someone's trying to give you a negative review. Contact the broker, see what you can do. A lot of times this is really hard because both parties are really hot in that moment. And so if you can't keep your cool, you can always have a third party reach out on your behalf. And keep in mind, you have 72 hours to respond. Always respond proactively to feedback and maintain a positive image. And again, there's lots of places where brokers can review, including DAT's company profile. Okay, leveraging your online presence. Again, this goes into your brand exists online in a lot of ways. And so we really see an uptick in carriers using LinkedIn to connect directly with brokers and showcase professionalism. Most brokers, if not all, are on LinkedIn. And so by getting on that platform, creating a profile, it can go a long way. Kind of utilize the social media to highlight your business. Again, your strengths, your reliability, your experience, and sharing valuable content to demonstrate your industry experience. There's I would say some do's and don'ts of kind of posting online. Really focus on positive experiences, highlighting successful partnerships, milestones, certifications, best practices, helpful tips. And I would say stay away from negative comments about brokers or customers, or controversial, polarizing topics, financial payment complaints. This can be hard, right? And so, I kind of say that it can feel good to expose someone online if a broker's treated you poorly. You can't really see that. But, I found some few examples. Here's a carrier that posts on LinkedIn. Let's make this guy famous. He wants drivers to take the load for the rate he thinks is enough. Now, look, I agree. This broker's a jerk, right? I would not recommend posting that online because the next broker is going to see this post, right? Stop abuse of brokers. I would say that, compare that to, I really like kind of how Josh Ricker, as I mentioned his website earlier, kind of handles his LinkedIn. That first message, nothing like an early morning corporate. The early bird gets the worm, a smooth load in, but only after a tight maneuver, and then posting a picture of his truck. And then this last one, this was just a little while ago. Managing a touring fleet means looking out for the team. It's 1 a.m. I've been checking in on the guys, making sure they made it in safe. Chris and Pavel stepped up, team driving through a winter storm. I would say that, like, which one of these is going to get the higher rate, right? When a broker sees these posts, is he going to be willing to pay Josh a little more because of how he handles himself online and seeing the professionalism? I would say yes. I would say yes. So I'd say be careful what you post online. And finally, I would say, when you distill a brand into what it actually is, it's about being remarkable. And think about that word, remarkable, right? People are able to remark it to you. Strong brands really create customer experiences worthy of people's attention. And so if you had to ask yourself one question, it's really like, what would I want my customers to tell their coworkers about doing business with me? I saw this quote on a forum. He did call out actually the name of the carrier, but this is kind of an example. It said, I want to show some love. I want to start publicly recognizing the carriers that do an effing great job and make our lives easier. I had one today, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Conestoga, confirmed picked up, sent a shit ton of pics, confirmed delivery, POD within minutes of unload, invoice sent within another hour, solid outfit. If only they could all be this easy, right? That's the kind of that's what that broker is going to tell his coworkers about working with you, right? And that starts this snowball. That starts your reputation in this industry, and it adds to the brand. And so, in summary, I'd say, the goal here is don't wait until the 90 days are over, right? We already talked about how it's hard to get a lot of good paying freight in that first 90 days, but there's a lot you can be doing with your time. So professionalize your brand and online presence, get that email domain, get that website, get a logo, start working on it. Develop your network. Real thing on websites, there's a lot of solutions out there. Something like Wix, I think is maybe around $20 a month. And it's just another cost, and it's hard to eat that. But again, looking back, right, the carriers with that website and email domain are getting $50 to $100 more per load. And so it's an investment that really does pay off. Develop your network, your negotiating skills, implement your operational best practices, and then ongoingly, proactively manage your reputation. And these are, we talk about this all the time, even on some of the phone calls when we're first getting someone initially starting and asking about getting our authority. Kerry, you mentioned to me, you can kind of tell who's going to make it and who's not. And these are really the factors.
They really are.
And one thing we do want to offer is, with the QR code, we kind of put together a marketing kit, kind of some of that guidance, advice on how to build that brand. Knowing where the market is headed with trend lines is data we publish, and then in-depth tutorials on how to thrive on that one. The next slide is QA, but I can leave this up just so you can scan the code. But any questions? Any questions that we can answer about starting your own authority or building up your company? Yes. Oh. I'm going to jump down so I can hear you a little better and then repeat the question so I can. Yeah, what was that? Yeah. So that's about feedback and how do you see what is being posted about you online? So I'd say that there's a few different places, right? One is we talked about Carrier 411. You'll get a notice if someone does a freight guard, and so you have some time to respond to that. But other also is reviews. So I would recommend creating like a business or Google business review for your business, and sometimes you'll see ratings there, and you can encourage people that you've had successful interactions with to write positive reviews there. And then if you get a negative one, the trick is to not respond in anger or anything like that, but really just try to be professional and say, hey, sorry you had a bad experience, but here's the facts as we saw it. This industry really is about relationships, and things will go wrong, right? Things are guaranteed to go wrong. And so the more I think we can have those interactions with professionalism, keep our heads cool, it goes a long way. And so I think even your responses when you respond to reviews are really an indication of how good that business is. And then also DAT's carrier profile, there's reviews there as well that you can get notified of. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to come up and ask us afterwards.